Here is my Odyssey project for English. I read book 21 of the Odyssey, and it was called The Test of the Bow. This presentation was made by me. Hello, this is a test. So first of all, I will go over an overview of the project and how I am going to lay out the information. First, I'll go over a summary of the book, which involves many of the major plot points of the book. Next, I will go into detail with the response questions that were assigned to Book 21 of the Odyssey, and then I will go into some connections of the literary ideas represented in the book and how they relate to epic poetry in general. Then after that, I will of course link it to our unit question, which deals with the importance of the final journey versus the end or the process that it took to get to the end. And then after that, for the final part of the presentation, I will address an aspect of the book that relates to something in the present day. So first is the summary of the book, and really this all takes place, on this journey back from the Trojan War. Odysseus went to go fight in the Trojan War, but unfortunately he had to leave his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus behind. And this was very hard for him because he loves his family so much, and it was very hard for him to depart with them. And he went off to fight in the war, took 10 years, but now he's on his 10-year journey back to come back to his wife and his son, who didn't even know and doesn't recognize him at this point. But unfortunately, since all this time has passed, his wife Penelope has kind of has given up hope that he will ever return. She thinks he might have died in battle or something. So she now has this contest where it will determine her new husband. And now we'll go on to the second part of the summary. And so all of these suitors have come to their house, and they are trying to, become the new husband so they have the supreme power over the area. And so, of course, there's this contest that Penelope makes up, and the first part of the contest is to see whether they're able to grip and draw back Odysseus' bow. And if they're able to succeed at that first part, then they will have to shoot an arrow through line of axes laid up on the ground. And whoever will win that will be the victor, be her new husband. And now we go into the final part of the summary, where we see Odysseus has actually returned from his 10-year journey, but no one recognizes him. He is this, dirty, poor, beggar-looking man coming onto the scene, and he has to, of course, win his wife back from all these suitors. So he joins in this contest, and of course, he's able to succeed since it is his bow, and he is the ultimate hero, as noted as the epic hero of this epic, or this book in the Odyssey. But it took a little bit of help from his servants, who had fortunately recognized him when he came back. Look at some of the questions related to this book. So first we'll start with the first 4 questions. What are the 2 parts of Penelope's challenge? As was stated before, first part was you must be able to wield the bow and draw it back to show a test of strength. Then you must be able to shoot the arrow through the line of axe sockets that were lined on the ground. Second, what is the prize for winning this competition? The prize, of course, as has been mentioned, is they will become Penelope's new husband. Each of the suitors succeeds. They are actually, I've not mentioned this before, it was Antonius and Eurymachus. They were the 2 people who were able to draw the bow back initially. And what does Philoetus do? He is one of the servants that had to recognize Odysseus when he came back and wanted to enter the contest, and Odysseus told him to run and lock the outer gates, which may be a foreshadowing of something that Odysseus might do after he wins the competition. Now we'll move on to the next set of questions, which involves question 5, 6, and 7. First, question 5, why do the other suitors make fun of the beggar as he prepares to string the bow? This is because they feel like he has an unfair advantage. He looks like he knows how to wield the bow, he's experienced, and they're getting shown up by this, ragged old guy just came off the street, even though they're the ones that are supposed to be impressing Penelope. Question 6. Who actually completes the challenge? In the end, the only person who completes it, as we know, is Odysseus. He's able to wield the bow and shoots the arrows straight through the axes, and none of them touch. Question 7. What does Telemachus do at the end of the passage? It is noted at the end of the passage, after Odysseus wins the challenge, that his son, Telemachus, comes by his side and draws out his sword. This indicates that he must have realized that this is his father, and that he has come back, and it's his duty, since he's trying to be loyal to his father, that he has to stand by him and guard him and defeat against all these enemies who've been trying to destroy and take away his life for all these many years. Now we'll move on to some of these connections to epic poetry, and the first one is the idea of an epic hero. Because obviously Odysseus, in this story, is the epic hero, and he has all of these desirable personality traits. In general, an epic hero is the one that is most desired. Everyone wants to be like this hero. And some of these traits involve, strength and courage, determination, intelligence, are all these things that an epic hero has as being this ideal person. And they have all these so they can pursue their goals. That's usually the main driving factor for the story. And in this one, it's him on a mission to get back to his family. And on this journey, he encounters gods and, creatures of all kinds that could try and prevent him from being able to get back to his family. Because a classic epic hero has to go through adversity and challenges and many obstacles to overcome and to eventually reach his goal, which is getting back to his family. That kind of hints at the idea of how human and how this human aspect of this epic hero. He isn't just this person of strength and determination. He isn't this perfect figure. He has all these other human traits, like, being blindsided towards the idea of just wanting to get back to his family. And to do this, he might have to be violent. He might have to be cruel. He might have to be a little bit tricky. He might have to be cunning. He might have these undesirable traits and still be this person that everyone looks up to. The literary concept that we will look at is the idea of these epic similes in epic poetry in general, because they are a little different than a regular simile that we would see in poetry, for example, Romeo and Juliet. Because an epic simile is longer and it has more detailed examples and comparisons between the two objects. So here are some examples from the text. Then came a rasping sound as those bright doors the key had sprung gave way, a bellow like a bull's vaunt in a meadow. Next one, like a musician, like a harper, when with his quiet hand upon his instrument he draws between his thumb and his forefinger. This last simile was comparing Odysseus as he was able to quickly and easily wield the bow that was obviously his. He is this person who is manipulating this instrument with such ease. Obviously, these epic similes help to convey this image in a time where they had to remember all these aspects of the story, and kind of elaborating on certain ideas or topics would help them remember. The final connection to elements of epic poetry that we will look at is the idea of loyalty. All epic poetry have some sort of motif that centers around the entire story, or in a book. So for example, in book 21, there's this idea of loyalty. Who do you look up to? Who do you have to trust? Who are you responsible to kind of look up to or follow? And so we see some relationships like son to father. Telemachus, is it his responsibility to try and wait for his father to come back? Is he supposed to just, accept the nature that he's gone? Should he stand by him? We see all these questions being raised. Again, servant to master. When Odysseus comes back, are these servants supposed to be, waiting for him to come back, and should they believe him when he tells them that he's the real Odysseus? Wife to husband, of course, we see Penelope almost not being loyal to Odysseus. She has officially given up on his return, and that's why she hosts the competition. And it's this idea where, well, should she be loyal to him when he was disloyal, maybe to her from her opinion, went off to war? Next one, king to country. Odysseus had this responsibility to be loyal to his country when he went off and fought in the Trojan War. But now that he's gone, it's somehow still been held together even though his presence has not been there. Is it his responsibility to lead all these people when he isn't even there? Then we have this goddess to mortal point of view when we see Zeus's interference with the competition as he brings down the arrow for Odysseus. of who has the supreme power and who is the one that's really being the hero, even though we see these gods as these overarching figures. Who is really the more important figure in the story? And of course, finally, we see the king to citizens, route, as these suitors should be looking up to their hero or their king Odysseus, even though they don't know it's him. So when Odysseus finally reveals himself, or when it's obvious that he is the real king of this area, do these citizens have loyalty? Are they supposed to look up to him, or do they defy him for leaving them all this time? Next, we will look at how this connects to the unit question of this. And of course, the unit question for this part of our English class is, what is more important, the journey or the destination? And in this passage in part of the Odyssey, it's very interesting to see how important this ending part of the journey is. Because from his point of view, he's been on this journey for 10 years, all these different challenges, the war, the monsters, the goddess interventions, but yet it all comes down to this last little moment that could affect and ruin everything he's trying to work for. There is this competition, and if he doesn't, pull it together and find a way to plan and win this, competition, then he could still end up losing his wife and his son, even though that's what the whole goal for this journey has been. And so a lesson could be learned here that if you put in all this work, maybe for studying for an exam, all this time you study a lot, you prepare, you ask questions, but then on the day of the exam you think, oh well, I don't have to worry about it, and you just blow the exam. It's that crucial ending point that can determine the whole outcome, even though you worked up to this whole journey. So Odysseus had to put in all that work and realize that he has to put in as much work as he could to get this journey finished, even though it's the end. Now we will finally look at the multimedia representation from this book to the real world. It's a little bit of a stretch, but I always thought of the way that Odysseus was able to convey his identity to his servants. He walked in, no one knew who he was, but they accepted him as Odysseus just by doing one small proof. He showed his servants his scar that he got, and he showed his servants a scar that he got a while ago, and they instantly just believed him that was Odysseus. So I've made this chart that kind of shows the difference between how we look at someone's identity today and how people can steal that identity, which is called identity theft, and how what we do to prove that someone is who they say they are. We have driver's licenses and social security number and passports, all ways of proving that someone is their identity, opposed to how Odysseus and the servants managed to recognize him just by a scar that he got 20 years ago. It's interesting to see kind of and how trust was so much more important back then, because you had to believe the person what they were telling you. You couldn't go by a certain record or an official document. So in conclusion, they had more of that trust and that truthfulness and loyalty. They had to just believe that it was Odysseus. They couldn't prove it. They have to have this trust, which is very important for during this time, because loyalty and relationships are who these characters are and how they're able to live their lives. So in the end, he was very lucky that they believed him, because there was no proof or recognition behind that. And here's the link to the article that I found the information about identities on. It's very interesting, and you can check it out when you want to. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.